What if the secret to loving yourself is found in obeying God? Let's start with the question. Are obedience and self-love really opposites? Or are they deeply connected? Have you ever wondered if loving yourself and obeying God are at odds? Many people do. But what if true self-love is actually found in following God's loving guidance? The world often says self-love means doing whatever feels good in the moment. But is that the whole story? Real self-love comes from trusting the one who made you. His guidance isn't about restriction. It's about protection and purpose. Think of a loving parent setting boundaries, not to control, but to keep their child safe. That's how God's commands work for us. God's love is not limiting, it's protective. His instructions come from a place of deep care. When we obey him, we're not just following rules. We're stepping into our true value and agreeing with God about how much we matter to him. Obedience is a powerful act of self-love. It's saying, Father, I trust you know what's best for me. That trust is the foundation of real self-worth. This shift in perspective changes everything. God isn't a distant rule maker. He's a loving guide, invested in your well-being. True self-love is rooted in partnership with our Creator, not in going our own way. When we align with his design, we discover our real identity. Obedience isn't about losing yourself. It's about finding who God created you to be. When you follow him, you step into freedom and hope. This love is anchored in the unchanging truth of who God says you are. Walking in his ways restores what's broken and brings healing. This is where true freedom begins. And where real joy is found. Let that sink in. So are you ready to discover the freedom and joy found in God's love? Let's begin this journey together, because obedience and self-love are more connected than you ever imagined. There was a season when I lost everything I thought defined me. My career, my relationships, my sense of security. My world felt like it was falling apart. Sometimes losing everything is the first step to gaining what matters most. My career was gone. When what you built your life on crumbles, God is still there. Relationships faded away. Even in loneliness, you are never truly alone. My sense of security disappeared. When you lose your safety net, God offers a new foundation. In that emptiness, I realized I had built my worth on things that could be shaken. That was my turning point. When everything is stripped away, God reveals what truly lasts. God allowed those things to fall away so I could discover a new foundation, one that could never be shaken. God's love is the only unshakable ground. He became the only unshakable foundation in my life. As 1 John 4:19 says, we love because he first loved us. That truth changed everything for me. You can only give what you've received. Let God's love fill you first. I realized I couldn't truly love myself until I accepted his love for me. That was the beginning of restoration. Restoration starts with receiving, not achieving. His love isn't based on my success, but on his unchanging character. Your value is not in what you do, but in who he is. Through loss, I learned that obedience was my lifeline, my way back to hope. Obedience is the bridge from loss to hope. I learned to be still, to focus on truth, and to rebuild my identity in him. The restoration God gave was greater than anything I lost. It was more than material recovery. It was a new sense of purpose. God's restoration always exceeds what you lost. He restored my dignity, my purpose, and my ability to see myself as cherished and deeply loved. Obedience became the path to true self-worth. That's the real gain. The greatest gain is discovering your worth in God. Sometimes losing everything is how we gain what matters most. If you're in a season of loss, remember, God is building something unshakable in you. What feels like loss may be the start of your greatest gain. How you see yourself shapes your restoration. Are you looking through God's eyes or the world's? The world says your worth is measured by status, appearance, or possessions. But is that really true? God invites you to see your value as His beloved child, unique and deeply loved. Your true worth isn't defined by your circumstances, but by your Creator's love for you. Like a masterpiece, your value comes from the artist who made you. Ephesians 2:10 says, "We are God's handiwork." What if believing God's truth about you is the foundation of real self-love? Agreeing with God, even when you feel inadequate, is an act of obedience and self-love. I've struggled with not feeling enough, but God reminds me. He qualifies the called, not the other way around. Choosing to believe His truth over your insecurities brings freedom and peace. Quiet the world's voices. Ask God, how do you see me? Let His answer shape your identity. You are fearfully and wonderfully made, chosen, and a child of the King. The most loving thing you can do for yourself is to believe what God says about you today and every day. The next step in loving yourself well is understanding God's boundaries. God's boundaries are always rooted in love, not restriction. Instead of seeing them as fences that keep you in, picture them as guardrails that keep you safe. His limits are for your safety, not your confinement. Proverbs 4:23 says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." God's boundaries are a gift to help you flourish. God's boundaries are there to protect us from harm and help us become who we're meant to be. His protection is proof of His love. I remember a time I had to set a healthy boundary in a friendship that was draining me. It was hard, but it was an act of self-love for my spiritual health. Trusting His limits is trusting His love for you. Are there areas in your life where you're resisting God's protection, like your finances, relationships, or time? His boundaries are invitations to greater peace. Ask God to show you where He's inviting you to trust His boundaries. His instructions aren't punishment, but loving protection. When you obey, you're declaring, "I am worthy of being protected." Living within His limits is a powerful form of self-love. Embrace His guardrails. They lead to peace. Remember, self-love means trusting God's loving limits. That's where true peace and freedom are found. His boundaries are the doorway to your freedom. Trusting God's timing can feel like standing still while the world rushes by. But remember, waiting is not wasted. It's one of the hardest acts of obedience, especially when answers seem delayed. But God is never late. We crave instant results, but God invites us to wait with hope. His timing is perfect, even when it feels slow or uncertain. The Bible is full of people who waited. Abraham, Joseph, the Israelites. Their stories remind us God is always working, even in the waiting. Each of them learned that waiting was not wasted time. Waiting is preparation, not denial. Trust this process. I once prayed for an opportunity that didn't come when I wanted. Only later did I see God's wisdom. He used the waiting to prepare me for something better. If you're in a season of waiting, remember, God is working behind the scenes. Trust His timing. See this time as preparation, not rejection. Obeying God now means trusting His goodness and timing. This frees you from anxiety and the need to control. Rest in his timing. He hasn't forgotten you. Waiting is an act of self-love that brings peace. Trust him. He's preparing you for fulfillment. Correction isn't condemnation. It's a sign of God's deep love for you. It's his invitation to grow into your best self. Just like a gardener prunes a vine so it can flourish, God lovingly shapes us for our good. His correction is always for our growth, never to harm us. Hebrews 12:11 says, "No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but later it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace." God's discipline is a gift, not a punishment. Correction is proof of God's love. He wants you to experience lasting peace and joy. God's correction is spiritual training, not shame. It's how he prepares us for greater things ahead. I once clung to habits that held me back until the Holy Spirit gently showed me a better way. Letting go was hard, but it was an act of love for myself. Every time you accept God's correction, you're choosing growth and freedom. Surrendering those habits brought freedom and authenticity, real transformation. Is God inviting you to adjust an attitude, habit, or relationship? See his correction as love, not anger. He wants you to become your healthiest, strongest self. Obeying his correction is an act of self-love. When you partner with God in your growth, you choose the harvest of peace. He promises. Embrace his loving discipline. It leads to wholeness and lasting joy. Correction is a gift. Accept it and watch your life bloom. Lasting joy is worth more than fleeting pleasure. Every day we stand at a crossroads. Will we chase instant pleasure or choose the path to lasting joy? Our world promises quick gratification, like scrolling for likes or chasing the next thrill, but it fades fast. Fleeting pleasure disappears quickly. God invites us to something deeper, a joy that endures no matter our circumstances. This is the joy that lasts. Lasting joy comes from God. True contentment isn't found in what we have, but in who we follow. Obedience leads us to joy that doesn't fade. Choosing joy through obedience is a powerful act of self-love. Obedience brings joy that lasts. The easy path may feel good for a moment, but it never satisfies for long. The path of obedience leads to joy that endures. Choose what's best for your soul. Galatians 6:8 warns, "Whoever sows to please the flesh will reap destruction. Whoever sows to please the Spirit will reap eternal life." I faced shortcuts that promise quick praise, but I chose integrity instead. The peace I gained was far better than any applause. Every day you get to choose fleeting pleasure or lasting joy. Your choice shapes your future. Loving yourself means choosing what's best for your soul in the long run. Ask God for strength to obey and to sow seeds of deep, unshakable joy. Lasting joy is found on the path of obedience. Choose lasting joy today. The journey to restoration starts with a single, pure, courageous step. Are you ready to move forward? True self-love is found in choosing to trust the God who loves you perfectly. This is your invitation. Don't miss it. His guidance protects and leads you into a life of abundance. Each step you take is a step toward wholeness. Every act of obedience is a declaration of your worth and a partnership with God in your restoration. Your next step could change everything. Let's make this practical together. Take a quiet moment today. Ask God to show you one area where He's inviting you to take a new step. Reframe it. I get to do this as an act of love for myself. Even the smallest action matters. Take one small practical step in that direction today. The first step is always the hardest, but it's also the most powerful. Don't worry about perfection. Just begin. God's plan for your restoration is greater than anything you've lost. Step out with confidence, knowing you are never alone. Each act of obedience plants a seed for a more beautiful, fulfilling life. Final thought. Your restoration story starts now. Take your first step. God is with you every moment. Each step you take is a seed for your future. Begin today and watch restoration unfold.